Hello, my name is Michael and I have the pleasure to show you around my hometown today. Maybe we just wait another couple of minutes until some more people are joining. So tell me who's online, where you're from, what's your name, and it would be nice to touch base before we start the tour around Seligenstadt am Main. So I might give you a brief introduction where we are here. Seligenstadt is located about 35 kilometers away from Frankfurt. It's about southeast of Frankfurt. It's a very old... Hello Catherine, good morning, nice to meet you. Again, I think we touched base before, Catherine. So yeah, it's about 35 kilometers away from Frankfurt Airport, and yeah, it's a historic town, and we will have a walk through town, and it's 2,000 years old, so it's very old, and yeah, I'm looking forward. Just a brief hi Lynn, good morning. How are you doing? Are you still in Morocco, I think? Oh, great that you're joining in. So yeah, I'll give you a quick rundown what we're doing today. So we have a walk around town. I'll show you bits and pieces, talk a bit about the history. I grew up here, was born here 60 years ago. And so yeah, let's get started. There's so much to talk about. So I probably yeah, come up with all sorts of stories. Hey, in Face, yeah, that's great, Face. Isn't it amazing, just around the world, really. So let's get started. There's lots to talk about, and I'll switch the camera around, and yeah, let's get it done. So here we are at the town square here in Seligenstadt. In the background you have the town hall. It's very old, 1559 built, and we'll walk through that part very soon. I'll just give you a quick look around here. This is historic Seligenstadt, and as I mentioned before, we're going back 2,000 years. So this was the place. This square was the first kind of fortification castello for the Romans. They built it about 100 AD. The old Romans came over here, was part of the protection, the limes against the riot, the elements, the Germans, fight them off. So we'll walk through here in a minute. But first of all, I want to show you one of the famous buildings here, very old style buildings. It's called the Einheit House. Look at this beautiful, beautiful, it's called Fachwerk Haeuser. This house was built in 1596. 1596, so it's very old. I'll talk a little bit more about the history while we're going. Again, there's so much to really discuss, but this house is, you can see maybe right on the top here, is a figurehead looking out. Not sure if you, Uppsala, sorry, turned around. Sorry, got a bit of a technical issue here. There's basically a man looking out, and this is Einheit up there. You can see that maybe, and it's called the Einheit House. Einheit was an advisor to Karl, King Karl, which was around 800 AD. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about Einheit when we going through town. So what we're now doing, we're walking over the marketplace. There's Saturday market here, beautiful, beautiful market. We'll go through the old part of Seligenstadt, stop here and there, going into the Abbey area, beautiful, beautiful gardens, and then we going around to the Basilica, big church, and onto the River Main. And along the way, I'll talk much more about it. If you have any questions, just put them up in the notes here, and yeah, I'm happy to answer them. It's always nice to have some questions. So beautiful fruit, look at that here. So basically producers from the area that come into Seligenstadt. I believe it's once a week on the Saturday morning market. You got fruit, vegetables. You got that's Feinkost. It's all sorts of beautiful, beautiful things. They got flowers, they got bakery. My mother actually lives nearby here, and they usually come every 2 weeks to the market. Look at that, beautiful local produce. Hello. Would you mind if I just have a bit of a look at that? Where are you from, guys? Sind Sie von hier irgendwo?
Yeah.
Okay.
At
Obernburg, yeah. The producers coming into Seligenstadt and selling their stuff on only Saturday, isn't it? Nur Samstag.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, bye-bye. Cheers. Yeah, so it's always quite nice to touch base, and look at that. We've got the famous German sausages here. It's a wide variety again. You know, they're coming in here from the region. Hello. And okay, so I guess that's enough of food and bits and pieces. So let's walk into the historic part of Seligenstadt. Again, just visualize this place, the marketplace, used to be all forest. There's a lot of forest around here. Before the Romans came, there was nothing really. It was more or less just hunting area. And as I mentioned before, the old Romans, they started the first fortification, the first wooden structures here around about 100 AD. And yeah, it has just developed over there. They spent about 160 years. They were here until 260 AD, so 160 years. So this place here brings back memories for me. This is the old blacksmith place. When I was a kid, I still remember there were actually horses. There were horses just tied up here on these wooden beams, and amazed of the amount of forest around Cologne as well too, right? I mean, this was just, I'll get in there in a minute, Lynn. It's really interesting what's happened here over the last 2,000 years. So back to the old blacksmith, and you can still see the old logo or Wappen, we call it. And when I was a kid, I was, Mr. Militzer. His name was Mr. Militzer, an old family here in Seligenstadt. He was the local blacksmith, and I remember I walked into that. It was really dark and dingy and smelly after smoke, but this is now a first-class restaurant, by the way. So, it's a lot of these old places have been beautifully restored, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but a lot of stuff has happened here. So after the Romans basically left Seligenstadt, there was not much happening until this Mr. Einhard was an advisor to the King Karl, a big actually emperor, not a king, he was an emperor. And he got gifted this part of the country by his son, Ludwig den Frommen. That was about 815. And basically, Einhard was a very, very wise religious man, and he basically established the Abbey, which we're going to soon, and Seligenstadt, as we know it now. Seligenstadt means, in German, means the place of the blessed. Seligenstadt. The place of the blessed. So he established the Abbey at 825, and really everything else happened from then. And here's another really historic building. It's called the Roman Steinhaus, the Roman stone house. And this was actually a meeting place for Emperor Barbarossa. So he built that, or they built that around 1187. So again, lots of history. And Barbarossa, by the way, he built a hunting lodge right on the River Main. We're getting there later on, around that time, 1180 as well. So everything seemed to happen, after 815, 825. And it's out of nowhere, really. I mean, out of forest area, the whole village established and grew. So now let's walk into the very heart of this Altstadt in Seligenstadt. This is the place I was running around as a kid. Um, all the buildings you now see, when I was a kid, I was, born in the 60s, so they were really fallen down. There were lots of ruins, and I'll show you hopefully a couple of places they're still renovating, but there were a lot of places falling down. But in the 70s, 1970s, they started to restore a lot of these beautiful buildings, and I'll show you one of my favorite ones right here on the left-hand side. Look at that beauty. This house, just go a little bit back, show you a little bit more. But this place was actually built in 1617. And this was actually built, so often these houses, they have a kind of a description about, what's happened. This was built by the abt, by the boss of the local monastery for his driver. So they got him this little house, which was nearby the abbey. Built that house right, nearby. And also what was quite common in those days, you see that kind of grand door. This was where they had a stall. That's where the animals were held. So a lot of these old places here in Seligenstadt, in the middle of Seligenstadt, when I was a kid as well, there were lots of little farms as such. The people, they had their houses, they had their animals, and here it was quite a smelly affair as far as I remember, And also these little places like this one, I remember when I was a kid, this was a cycle shop, I was running up the stairs here when I was 5, 6, 7, and getting parts for my cycling. So yeah, it really brings back the memories. So you can see already in the background the Basilica. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Basilica once we get a bit closer, but this is obviously one of the key sites. There's a lot of tourists coming to Seligenstadt. Seligenstadt, it's called the Perle am Main. It's basically a real treasure. Perle is pearl, but it's a real treasure. It's big tourism now. It's a lot of tourists, especially on the weekends. We have Saturday here now, so you can just see a little bit here. This house, it's been restored. You can see obviously the entrance. You can see the little windows, but this is going on. This restoration work has been going on since years. I'm coming to Germany kind of every year I live in New Zealand. But I visit my family and I come over, and they've been building on it at least 3 to 4 years, even longer. But what they do, they get a lot of support from the state government, and obviously they have to pay themselves as well, the owners. But it looks very original, but inside it's modern. Everything is top notch, but it's obviously really expensive to set that all up again. But Seligenstadt is famous for that. As you can see, there's lots of these houses, Fachwerk Haeuser. We got the logo here. That is the logo, das lokale Wappen. That's the wheel and the eagle. Interesting enough, Seligenstadt, when you look on the Google map, Seligenstadt is really not far away from Frankfurt, about 35 kilometers, as mentioned before. And there was a really important trade route coming from Nuremberg, from Augsburg, Nuremberg, Würzburg, Seligenstadt, Frankfurt. So these traders, like we've seen, a little bit like in the market we've seen this morning, they were coming with their products over, days and weeks from the southern part of Germany and heading towards Frankfurt, which was an important trading place. So Seligenstadt was actually the last stop on that route going over to Frankfurt. So very, very important. And this it's called der Geleitszug. It's celebrated every 4 years. It's a big event here in town, and there's a lot of a lot of locals are involved here in Seligenstadt. There's about 15,000 people living there now. A lot of locals are involved. Like yesterday, I've been sitting here meeting some friends, and they just sit there, and then people walk by and they say hello. And it's really, really one of these places. It's large enough, but also small enough to be able to catch up with people. So this is the Basilica. We do a little bit of a loop, so we're finishing up on the other side. But there's one place I just want to show you. Just want to show you. Look at that. That's another famous restaurant. Again, at the moment, I mean, it's 9:45 here in the morning. It's not that busy, but you wait until about lunchtime. It will be humming. It will be humming. People coming everywhere. This is the very, very famous Ice Kaiser. At the moment closed, obviously, but it is actually Ice Kaiser. It's ice cream. And I tell you what, this place, you just have to mention Seligenstadt, and a lot of people I meet from around the world say, oh, there's the Ice Kaiser. That's where the ice cream shop is. So that is how famous this little place is. And yeah, it's just incredible. It's tourism, as I mentioned before, has become one of the key economical sources here in Seligenstadt. And we're actually walking over the Freighofplatz. And you see all the chairs and tables. Last night when I was here, it was totally full. And yeah, I mean, it starts from midday onwards. But I want to show you something. I want to show you an historic place as such, and it makes total sense because Seligenstadt was really in the heart of Germany, with lots of traders and so on. But this place, the Drei Kronen, we have two restaurants. We have the Drei Kronen here, and we have 1744, which is actually, it's a name of a beer type. We have a local brewery as well. But here, in the Drei Kronen, it's said that Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, he actually came and stayed here in 1812 after his failed war against Russia. He was on the way back home to France, and it was all a bit secretive. You know, they obviously had a bit of security issues. So that's where Napoleon stayed for a night or so, and before he continued into back home France. So again, you know, there's a lot of history, and a lot of famous people would have come through here. So we're right at the entrance of the Abbey. So we'll walk through that and I'll explain a little bit more. So this is one of the key spots, and if you ever come to Germany, if you're ever nearby Frankfurt, I really highly recommend you coming through here and going into the Abbey, because this is beautiful. So they use it now, obviously, for a lot of events. Here's a bit of a map. I'll just show you that briefly. So we're basically over here, and we just walk through there. There's the old bakery, the bakehouse. They're baking on Thursdays. There's the flour mill, but I'll just explain all that while there. And this is the huge garden area. This is about 10,000 square meters garden inside the Abbey. So this is basically the whole thing. So let's walk through and enjoy that beautiful Saturday morning. Things getting started. We got little festivals, especially on the weekends, happening. We got that beautiful cobblestone. Look at that. This is kind of original. This is how the roads looked like in those days, you know. Beautiful. And I still remember the noise of, because the whole central Seligenstadt was cobblestone. When cars rolled over the cobblestone roads, you know, they have that distinctive kind of sound. So let's continue. They obviously build a little bit for bicyclists, a bit of a straight one, otherwise it's too much wobbling going on. Let's just have a quick look in that. That's where the old kind of monks lived. And as I mentioned, 825 it was established, and it lasted until 1804. So 1804, they had nearly basically 1,000 years, right? Okay, so this is kind of like the inside of the Abbey. There was over there, I believe, I've done a tour. You can actually do tours here as well. inside there, that was where the dining hall. I just had some internet issues here. I think it went a little bit too far. Can you still hear me? Just one sign, please. I'm sorry, I haven't done that before, so there must be obviously a bit of a spot. Oh, look at that. The old chimney is going. That is the bakery, the Backstube. Let's have a quick look over there. As I said, you know, they're usually only open on a Thursday. And by the way, I'm from one of the baking families here, so I'm very much attached to the local bakery scene. They had 14 bakeries when I was a kid. Now there's only one left. I'm not sure if we just have a quick look if he's happy. Yeah, all good. Thanks very much, Lynn. I just asked him if he's happy that we have a quick look. Guten Morgen. Kann ich gerade mal reinkommen mit meiner Kamera? She's just sorting some bread, and I just want to explain a little bit, because what they're doing, they have a recipe of an historic recipe, Klosterbrot. So they're using that, baking it normally once a week. I'm not quite sure why it's open today, but they probably only have it open for tourists on the weekend. Guten Tag, mein Name ist Michael Nees. Ich bin von einer der Bäckereienfamilien hier, original. Okay. Und ich mache gerade eine Livestreaming-Tour mit Leuten von der Welt und erzähle denen ein bisschen über Seligenstadt. Kann ich kurz reinkommen? Ja. Und nochmal die Anlage zeigen hier. So this is the bakery. They bake once a week on Thursdays, on Donnerstags, backt ihr, ne? Yeah. And they have, look at that, that's just, I mean, I've been here once when they did the baking, but this is the oven, and it's all, you know, kind of, it's, you know, it's not originally, it's built 2009, but it gives you kind of a feeling, and they have all the different herbs up there, what they're using. They use sauerteig, anise, coriander, fenchel, camadon, well, I don't know what that is, but kümmel, which is caraway. So yeah, it just gives you an idea. And they also have beautiful cake, look at that. Habt ihr am Wochenende offen oder was, ne?
Das ist jetzt fürs Klosterfest.
Ach, fürs Klosterfest, okay. All right, so let's go. Thanks very much. Apparently she told me it's for, there's a festival like we've seen before on the other side here. And they basically have that stuff, that food available for that Klosterfest, for the festival. So the Germans are really big with their coffee and cake, you know. And it was kind of like a berry cake, or they have plum cake in that time of the year. I mean, this is now the peak harvest season for all the fruits. So anyway, yeah, now we're inside the Abbey Central, so to say. Again, when I was a kid, I was running around here, and it was all a bit fallen down. We just have a quick walk, but I want to swing around here, and I want to show you the old mill. So we went into the Backstube over there, and now this is the old mill. So that's where they had a little creek here. So the creek was obviously, the water was running through here, and they had a mill which was a big water wheel. Just have a quick look here. Basically, the water was going through, and the mill was running inside here. So it gives you an idea. I'm not sure if you can see that properly, but it gives you an idea. So it was all very much together. They had their kind of own, you know, everything was here. They had wine cellars, they had kitchens, they had, at the end there were only, in 1804, there were only about 20 monks left apparently. And when they closed it, they paid them off. And there were about 3 or 4 monks that basically they died here. And after that, the whole complex became kind of government, you know, departments for the administration in those days. So, and apparently they had about, when they lived, they had about 40,000 liters of wine and about 130 paintings, and that was all sold off, and about thousands of books. But here's an interesting little corner. Hopefully we don't lose our connection, but this is Haverbrei. We obviously had very difficult times here in Seligenstadt as well, like with the Dreißigjährigen Krieg, the 30-year-old war, 1618 to 1648. A lot of people starved, and this is where we had the Armenfütterung, which is basically where they provided some porridge for the downstairs. I mean, if you ever come to Seligenstadt, you need to do the tour. There's actually downstairs here, there's a cloister kitchen. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. You have to have a look. But they fed the poor people here. And what's happened, especially in the 30-year-old war, 1618, 1648, the king of Sweden came down here, and they pretty much raided everything here. They took everything away, but what they did not do, they did not burn it down. So that was really fortunate that we kind of, have the basic structure still here. And we also see, and they started rebuilding it like 1686. Not sure if you see that up there, but 1686, that's when they rebuilt the whole place. So let's go through. I hope that the internet should be all right. I had no problems before, but there's a lot of information about, the abbey and the monks and the church. So, I could talk for ages. And here you have a picture of Einhard with his wife Imma. And Imma was actually the daughter for the emperor, Kaiser Karl. And we're going now into the Abbey Gardens, and they basically run them until the late 1700s. And you just get an idea very, very fast. They have a bit of a cloister cafe here, which we see from outside as well. But now let's go into the Abbey Garden. Now, right, so we got here the herb garden at first. So this is all kind of traditional. That's the way it more or less looked until the late 1700s. They obviously, after that in 1900, until the 1970s, really, everything was falling down. Again, when I was a kid, I was running around here. Things didn't look that pretty like they do now. But I mean, they more or less restored the gardens. We got the Basilica right in the back here. We're doing a loop over there soon. But yeah, look at that. Isn't that incredible? This is the magnet for visitors coming to Seligenstadt. And we have a quick walk. Look at that, the old little angel. We have a walk through, but there's quite a few gardeners, obviously, involved here, looking after the place. Summer and winter, they have fruit trees, and one of them is, around the wall. It's called Spalierobst. So there's a lot of people involved growing those vegetables as well. What they do, there's a bit of a little shop here as well. You can actually buy the vegetables. So that could be, I'm not sure what that is, but you probably know that. But often salads or even cauliflower or that kind of stuff, And they have apple trees, pear trees. It's just like in the old days when the old monks were living here and looking after all that. They had their own staff, obviously, as well. The monks, it was not, there were not that many monks. About, I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was about 100 at the top, at the peak time, of the monastery. So so let's walk through and enjoy that kind of, look at that. Isn't that amazing? I just need to stop talking because that is the place. Every year when I come to Seligenstadt, I'll sit here and I have a look. It's so peaceful and tranquil, really. So a couple of words about, yeah, it is absolutely gorgeous, Lynn. And again, you know, I can highly recommend for people to come here. There's actually a cruise from Frankfurt. A lot of people come with a cruise ship, and then we'll go there in a minute down the river. So, as I mentioned, Abbey was established 825. They basically started building the church as well at that time. It was much smaller, and they over the last, I just have to get my little sheet out because there's so many numbers, but I just want to give you the right information. So the original towers in the front part, they were built 1050. Then the octagon tower here in the 1300s, and then further extensions 1722, and more changes obviously 1840, 1880, and in 1925 the Pope Pius the 11th put the church into a basilica status. So this beautiful basilica is the largest basilica north of the European Alps. It's just incredible. And I was actually baptized in there. I just talked the other day with my mother. She told me I was just about 2 weeks old, and I got baptized in there. And yeah, it's a very important place. You can see, let's have a quick look there, but you can see there's a cafe place, which is run by a local charity. Maybe just go quickly over there so you get a bit of an idea about this. But I mean, it's a superb day today. We had quite warm this week. We had about 32 degrees yesterday. Yeah, but it already has that kind of autumn feeling. Look at that, people sitting out there. As I mentioned before, the Germans, they love their coffee and cake. It's one of my challenges sometimes in New Zealand that after 2 o'clock or whatever, 3 o'clock, the latest, very latest, all the coffee places close. But here in Germany, it's very common that coffee places and, you know, tots and cakes are served until 4, even 4:30. So yeah, let's swing around. We're heading off now to the river Main. There's also a little thing. I mean, you can't do all these beautiful trees without bees, so I don't want to go too close, but you can see beehives. So they're all hidden away as a local beehive or bee club in Seligenstadt. So they look like pretty much traditional beehives. Yeah, same in Australia. Here we go. So yeah, look at these Spalierobst. So basically what they've done, these are pears obviously. They grow them on the wall and, you know, attach them when they're kind of younger. And it's a very efficient way to grow the old fruits. So they do that with all sorts of. I've done it actually in New Zealand with my garden at some stage. It worked. It worked down there as well. So okay, let's go out into the Main River area. So that's, I mean, you're probably getting a bit tired of my talking about my past, but this is the kind of playground I played as a kid as well. It's hard to believe, about, you know, 55 years ago. But anyway, right, now look at that. What a beautiful sight. This is the River Main. So the River Main is one of the major rivers in Germany. It's located also in Frankfurt. So it more or less, it comes from the western side, comes actually from the eastern side, but it finishes in the Rhine River, which is near Wiesbaden, which is around about whatever, 80 or 100 kilometers away. So this is a very important freight route, or it used to be even more important. There are some factories further up, paper factories and so on, and they used to really transport all sorts of things on the river. And we have on the other side, just maybe jump down here, we have the ferries just coming over. This again, you know, there's no bridge here because on the other side, guess what? We have the state of Bavaria on the other side. So this is really the border between Hessen, which we are in Hessen here, and the Bavarians over there. And I tell you what, when I was a kid, this was like Australia to me over there. I never set foot over there. It's kind of really weird. You have that natural border with the river, and it's really, you know, foreign. But you can see, look at that. There's an old map, just very briefly. I've never stopped here before the first time. So you see the Limes, that is basically where the old Romans had the fortification line against the Alemannen. And we have the river Main here, which is going around here. Seligenstadt is here, and it goes here, Mainz, Wiesbaden. That's where the river Rhine is. So it's quite cool. Yeah, and yeah, the ferry is kind of, I mean, it's not, there are lots of bridges around left, right and center, but this connects, you know, the locals more or less, which maybe living on the other side, they want to come over for an ice cream or for a bit of a visit. And yeah, so that is the old ferry. I just want to walk a little bit further. I want to show you the old Palatium, which was the hunting lodge for Barbarossa. And I see actually there's a local guide doing a guided walk at the moment, and I know him. This is Mr. Post. I've forgotten his first name actually, but I've done a tour last year as well. He was actually telling us about that. Cable car for cars. Is that just a cable car for? They're cars, you see, Lynn, it's actually for cars and for passengers. Bicyclists, often people bicycle here. So look at that. That is Mr. Post. He's explaining the Lügebänkchen. It's called the Lügebänkchen because that's where the old days people were sitting down and telling porkies. So it's a kind of an institution. So it's very old, and you know, there's also a saying, hier kannst du lügen, bis die Balken sich biegen. Basically, you can see that on the top there. It's basically saying you can lie until the beam's bending. So, and here's Mr. Post. He's basically doing a bit of a tour. As mentioned before, tourism is really important here in Seligenstadt. Okay, let's continue. There's a lovely restaurant, die Mainterrasse, wonderful, beautiful. You know, you can imagine you're sitting here and you're looking down to the river. I just want to, again, show you the Palatium. It's just really, you know, only a few seconds away. Just gives you an idea. Again, like I mentioned before, everything was forest here. There were just forests around, and obviously there was a lot of deer and porks and so on, boars. And this was built in about 1180 at the hunting lodge by Barbarossa. Emperor Barbarossa, Friedrich I. And you know, I mean, isn't that incredible? I mean, when I was a kid, I was running around and I didn't really understand the kind of, you know, impact of what's happening. But you know, after reading up a little bit more, yeah, it's basically 1,000 years old here up this. So, I mean, obviously they had a few fires, I would imagine, though the old beams are gone, but yeah, just gives you an idea. Okay, let's walk back into town, and yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Such a beautiful day today. It really is. So what we do, we go back through the old part of town, and I want to show you one reason why the Romans actually chosen this place in settling in their castle. It's actually called Selgum Castello Selcum. There was one key reason.
Nochmal fotografieren, ohne zu fragen.
Nee, ich fotografiere nicht.
Das ist so unsere Privatsphäre hier.
Ja, tut mir leid.
Nee, nix da.
Somebody complained that I've done a picture of them. Oh boy. Anyway, the reason they've actually done it, settled here, is that of the high waters. You can see how high the river can go. So they had it up there, 1342. The water levels were that high, taller than me. So you can imagine the kind of water levels would have been there. And therefore, the Romans basically saw this as a natural, fortification as such, and built their first castello in that kind of marketplace we started the tour today. So yeah, it's fascinating, and a lot of things. What's happening also is now that people cycling along the river, and it's become really big business too. Cycle tours, so just some cycling passing. There are some accommodation properties. Look at these little alleyways here. There's some accommodation. People can book ahead. There's obviously plenty of places where you can dine. There's lots of things. So there's a place here. Last year there was a big fire, and somebody left their little what's it called, where you fry stuff, sort of an oil fryer, and that's what's happened. The whole place burned down. So they're obviously doing this up at the moment, and this will be a big exercise. But yeah, we can still walk through, I believe. Well, yeah, we can. There's kind of a little gap. Obviously, I can jump over this. So yeah. So another thing I'm just seeing here, große Fischergasse, which basically means big fishing, road. There were a lot of Zünfte in Seligenstadt. So I mentioned before the bakers. They had fishing, obviously the river. There was a lot of fishing going on. And the carpenters, the blacksmith, everything, there was a lot of that happening. And it's also part of this Geleitsmarkt I told you, which happens every 4 years. All these Zünfte, all these professions, they actually build kind of like for a long weekend. They build up their show and showcasing their products in the traditional way, how it's done. So yeah, it's really good. And it's one of the key reasons I'm obviously coming back every year, just to absorb that beautiful local vibe. So we basically make our way back to the market square. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of, we're coming to the end of our tour. I could continue. There's a bakery. If you want to see a bakery, let me know. We can actually pop into a bakery as well along the way. We would need to ask though. Some people, as you see, I mean, let's walk over there again. Some people are a bit touchy. And normally I do ask, but he could have said something straight away. So let's walk through here. Go a little bit faster here. So this is one of those accommodation properties. So you can up to 6 people can accommodate. So isn't that beautiful? You just arrive here and staying in these beautiful. Yeah, it is a very interesting place, Catherine. Honestly, it's as far. I've been traveling last year with my wife around central Germany a bit more, and there are lovely other places. But Seligenstadt is really special. I'm maybe a little bit biased because I'm born here, but it has something really special. especially with the market square, the kind of central focus point. And there's not much traffic going on. Most traffic is not allowed to come into the central part. So, you know, people are walking around or bicycling around. So, so we're just heading back to the old market square again, and we'll see how it goes. There's just a bakery around the corner. You probably would love it. I'm not sure. I need to ask them before if we can have a quick look at their cakes. But yeah, over there on the left-hand side, you can't see it from here, but there's I might be actually going through here just for a minute. There's a butchery, Bäcker, Bäckerkal. It's one of the few left. Again, you know, most of these smaller shops, they're gone. Most people would actually go shopping in the supermarkets, of course. And these people, they do also takeaway. And yeah, this is Metzgerei Bayer, which is basically Bäcker, which is basically a butchery. So this is an interesting place too. This is used to be a paper place in the old days when you had newspapers. Was running up and down these stairs, and or you could buy pens, you could buy little books for school and so on. So it's here. That's a bit of an art gallery. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So there's lots and lots to see. I mean, you could easily spend a day here in Seligenstadt, especially if you, you know, with cycling or just coming from Frankfurt with a boat. But it just gives you a really good insight. You can dig much deeper, and you could do a tour. You could do the Abbey tour, as I mentioned before. Now we've got the old Germans sitting there, and I'm not sure if I'm getting into trouble, that people kind of feel that their privacy is compromised. So I'll do a bit of a loop. It's a bit too busy for I might dash in and give you a quick stop. I just asked them before I do that, sorry. Look at that. Hello. Look at these beautiful things. That's what you're coming here for. It's part of the reason you're coming here for when you go to Seligenstadt. And you know, you obviously can have coffee with that, and it's just gorgeous, you know. This is, you know, the way the Germans eat, eh? Okay, let's go out again. Cool, okay, right. Let's go back to where we started. We got here right the town square again. I'll show you one last thing, and then yeah, we'll have to say bye-bye, and I have to catch up with some other friends soon. It's quite interesting, isn't it? You always, when I'm here in Germany, I'm very busy with catching up, but this is a bit of a history, like we discussed before. So you have the Schenkung, 815, that goes right back, the monastery, all what we talked about. There were some famous people. Hans Memling was born here. It's all sorts of information, you know, until right 1977, when there were little townships next by. They were eingemeindet, so they basically got part of Seligenstadt. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this little tour through my hometown Seligenstadt. Another last view here up to the old Apotheke. Yet again, look at that, there's an old Frankfurter Hof, 1490. 1490. And look at that, the old Stadtapotheke. It's a pharmacy, so still operating. No doubt I'm not quite sure when it was established, but no doubt hundreds of years old. So I'll just turn the camera around. So it's been really lovely showing you around Seligenstadt am Main. If you enjoy it, feel free to support what I'm doing with my Buy Me a Coffee or join my YouTube channel to stay connected with all sorts of stories. I'm doing also live streaming tours in New Zealand. I'll be back in about 2 weeks. So yeah, thanks very much, Lynn. Have a wonderful time away on your travels. Not sure how much longer you're on the road, but otherwise, see you guys next time. Can't wait to show you more places in New Zealand especially. Bye.